Now we'll call on Pauline Tully.
And good morning to all our guest speakers, and it's great to hear from all of you. I suppose just because the time is limited, I have a number of questions I'd like to ask. Like everybody in this committee is very anxious to do what they can to implement the UNCRPD, but I don't want to see this committee consigned to history as being full of good intentions but having no teeth to actually get things done. Like you referred to, many reviews or reports and strategies that have been prepared before but haven't been implemented or not fully implemented. So if I would like to ask John if he could expand on his proposal to how the Department of Taoiseach operate a project management function, and how this committee can see that happen, or what we should be doing to see something of that nature happen to ensure that we achieve what we set out to do. Because we've had a number of meetings with ministers and brought up issues with them, and I know our work has been hampered by the COVID restrictions and we should have a lot more done than we have. But I just noticed, it's a difficult situation where you're trying to talk to ministers across a media platform and not face to face. But I find that, you don't get the answers you want to a lot of the questions we ask. And I mean, some of the things, that have been brought up and that is brought up constantly with me is the lack of independent supported living, which I see as a cornerstone of the UNCRPD. And what we're seeing is a lack of coordination between local authorities and the HSE, and just how can we do something about that and move that on. And just a very quick question on any of your thoughts on how we would address and maybe reverse the regression that the closure of schools have had on many students with additional educational needs. Is there something that can be put in place, like an enhanced July provision and other supports in schools? And just, the waiting list for intervention and therapy seem to grow longer and longer all the time. And I know, again, therapists being withdrawn to do contact tracing has had a negative impact on that. But we keep being assured that the therapists are back in place. But that's not what I'm hearing from many parents who are, the waiting list seems to be getting longer. And a lot of the time, children may get an assessment of need, but then have to wait years for any sort of interventions. So thank you, members.
Thank you very much, Pauline. Do you want to respond to Pauline's points?
Well, I'll pick up on the first question, if that's okay, and let some other colleagues pick up on the school closures, etc. Look, it's as simple as this. The Taoiseach's department, one of its roles is the coordinating department. It's the department that supports the Taoiseach of the country. And it is our absolute experience that the efforts to implement today have all fallen down because there wasn't what I would call a ward boss, somebody that can, with authority, that can ring up any department and say, come on lads, you need to think out this a bit more and you need to work with other departments. All the problems that people with disabilities have are exacerbated because everything is, you have to go back out the door of one department, go down the street and queue up to go into another one or a local authority or whatever to actually get things moving. Somebody, the Oireachtas Disability Group and the voluntary members of that are DFI, the National Disability Services Association, Inclusion, ILMI, and I think I have them all there. I can be corrected if I haven't. But looked for two critical infrastructural things in the run-up to the last general election. One was a committee, this committee. We didn't say Disability Matters. Some other genius came up with that lovely name. And it is all about the disability matters for people's lives. And the other thing was we looked for a Minister of State in the Department of Taoiseach who would have that role and could, in effect, pick up the phone, pull departments together, go back to the Taoiseach and say, we need a bit more whatever here. It's that leverage that's needed at the centre. We didn't solve the unemployment problem of 10, 11, 12 years ago without a whole of government approach to it. It was every minister and every department's job every day of the week. And the response to COVID has been at a whole of government level. It hasn't been, oh, that's a health issue. The Department of Health can solve that. So if disability and implementing the CRPD is a lived commitment, the Taoiseach's department has to find a way to put in what I describe as a project management system to help and support and to test out that things are happening in an efficient and effective way. That's what public service reform is supposed to be about, efficiency and effectiveness in carrying out the commitments that the state has already given. Thank you, Cahill.
Thank you. I know that we have a number of members want to come back on Pauline's points, but I am conscious as well of the time. We're trying to stick rigidly to the time. So I'll take maybe one of our contributors or witnesses just to answer the points, the important points that Pauline raised. Who wants to come in there? Lorraine, you have your hand up.
Yeah, very quickly, just in relation to the points of therapists being directed towards testing and contact tracing. So as far as I'm aware, that's no longer the case, but what we're left with, I suppose, is still services that are being delivered predominantly remotely. Instead of being diverted towards testing and contact tracing, therapists are now being directed towards assessment needs and reducing the state's breaching of the statutory obligations to complete those assessments within the statutory timeframe. So that then means that any children on intervention waiting lists or in intervention but not receiving intervention are having to wait because of the state's obligation to meet the assessment needs deadlines. And I understand Anne Rabbit has invested over 7 million towards reducing those assessment needs waiting lists. But while children are being in a constant loop of assessments, they don't get what they really need, which is the actual intervention to make a difference. In relation to, I suppose, redressing the issues around COVID, Inclusion Ireland was in a couple of Oireachtas committees talking about the impact of COVID on children in schools due to school closures and remote education not working. What we'd like to see, I suppose, is a massively expanded summer programme, even larger than last year. And that means incentives for more schools to engage in school-based summer programme, because that's what the children, for the most part, really need. What we don't need is parents having to struggle to find tutors or SNAs themselves with no centralised database operated by the Department of Education. I understand your colleague, the spokesperson for education, Deputy Tully, has raised this issue with the department. Inclusion Ireland, Down Syndrome Ireland, as I am a Family Carers Ireland, have requested and have had approval from both Ministers for Education, Josepha Madigan, and Ministers Foley, that the department should set up a regular consultation forum for our organisation so that we can collaboratively input into the development of things like the summer programme. So instead of announcing something that's not going to be effective, we can be part of designing something that will from the outset. So we've written to the department to establish that group. Look, in relation to services, COVID has only exacerbated waiting lists. It didn't create the waiting list. And what we need is investment. But when we have investment, the HC has a problem with recruitment. And I understand that they are looking at how we get over this. But I can't see any differences over the next couple of years if we're not producing the required therapists from third level and enticing them into children's disability services. We're always going to have unfilled yet funded posts. And this is the direction that we're now currently going, and we're risk at not being able to deliver for children's needs based on the fact that we simply can't fill posts when we do have funds available. Look, you hear parents every other day on the radio and the media on prime time, expressing how distressing it is to see their child not developing because they're not meeting their potential, because the parents aren't being given the right resources to support them. And that goes for schools. We do know that the allocations for schools in relation to special educational teachers and SNA allocations are based on whole school profiles. And there's been a stalling of re-looking at what those school profiles look like now. And we understand with the pandemic the reasons for that. However, you have schools that are going to be trying to provide additional teaching allocation for children with special educational needs based on the same numbers that they had 4 years ago. And this is particular for developing schools like Educate Together as patron bodies. So we need to see an increase in the supports around the special educational teacher allocations and SNA allocations to wrap around schools, and also additional therapy supports to ensure that children are delivered therapy in the right place at the right time for what they need. And if it's school-based, so be it. If it's home-based or community-based, depending on what the goals are for that child, we need to develop the systems and the resources to deliver that effectively for children.
Thank you very much. Now I'll have to